Very, very vividly, I remember. We were in Montreal. I had been, for the first few months I was with WWF that last time, I was mainly a vignette character. I hadn't wrestled but on one or two shows. I think I did a run-in on one of the shows in Dayton, Ohio, not Dayton, Akron, Ohio. Just things like that, but I wasn't yet on the road full-time. The first week I was on the road full-time was a hellacious road trip from like Pittsburgh to Toronto, Toronto to St. Clair or something like that up in Wisconsin. It's really, really long road trips. And we ended up in Montreal, me, Justin Credible, Pete Flacco, and Christian Tammy traveling together. And we were staying at the Days Inn at the Montreal airport. And when I got to the building, this is like I said, the first week or so I'm on the road full time, and the building's no longer there, the Molson Center. So we walk into the Molson Center, and as you walk down this like sloping ramp that went down to the right, sloping downward. And as you walk down this ramp, there were two dressing rooms about 15, 20 feet apart on the left-hand side. I went to walk into one of those rooms, and I think Deshaun grabbed him by the coat and said, "Oh, you dress with us." And so I followed them down to the bottom of the ramp where the Zamboni machine was parked, and they walked around the Zamboni machine. On the other side of the door, this is where the Montreal Canadiens dressed. So I walk in there, and I sit down. Again, keep in mind that these are guys that I've done, in 1990 when we were in WWF, I was in WWF, me, Sean, Marty, and Dustin, we call ourselves the Four Amigos. Where you saw one of us, you saw all four of us. We traveled together, we trained together, we ate and drank together, literally did everything together. And so I walked down and I opened my bag up and I'm getting dressed, and right in front of me, Sean starts asking Kevin Nash what he's going to do that night. Now, the preface to this whole story is that Montreal had been down in a big way, the houses. And Carl Ouellet, Pierre, at the time, was from Montreal. He had worked his butt off to get the house up. And the house was up considerably. It wasn't packed. It wasn't sold out. But I think it had gone from like 68,000 to 160,000. And the main event of the match that night was the local guy, him, Pierre, versus Kevin Nash, the belt. And the whole rest of the story is taken in context of what was said during this whole back and forth. So Sean said, "Kevin, what are you going to do tonight?" And Kevin said, "Well, Vince was kind of a hot finish, so you can have a return." And Sean said, "Fuck what Vince wants." He said, "Would you work with the champion? Do you put the champion over clean?" And Kevin said, "Yeah, but that's different." He said, "Oh, that's not different." He said, "You're the champion. Why should this be shit put you over clean?" Like this kind of I'm paraphrasing, but this kind of context. And so finally, Kevin, I don't know. And Sean said, like, pantomime to him. He said, like gave the motion like to the jackknife. He went jackknife. He did the motion, and then with his fingers come out 1, 2, 3, and just then the door opens up. Carl comes walking in to talk to Kevin. And Sean turns around and says, "Hey, Carl, the guy who's just talking shit on a second ago. Hey, Carl, buddy?" He walks around. Carl's blind, I believe, on the right side. And he walks around his blind side, but he's leaving. But then he turns, walks behind him. He's standing right behind him. And, again, this is all happening 6 feet in front of me. And Carl says to Kevin, "So what do you want to do tonight, Kevin?" And Kevin said, "Well, I don't know." And Sean is standing behind Carl's back on his blind side, and he's not saying it. He's not making any noise. He's pantomiming jackknife with his fingers 1, 2, 3, with his pissed off look on his face. And Kevin finally says, "Well, I don't know. I'm saying maybe jackknife 1, 2, 3." And Carl goes, "No, we can't do a clean finish. Can't do a return off a clean finish." And So this, the story would take an hour to tell the whole story, but Sean then goes up to the other dressing room, and where all the boys are and the agents, and he says, as Carl comes walking in to talk to the agents about the finish that Vince himself wanted, and he said, everybody, my name's Shawn Michaels. You may know me as the Heartbreak Kid. This is Carl Ouellet. You may know him as Pierre. Pierre thinks he's too big of a star to put our champion over tonight. And Carl thought, Shawn, what are you talking about? I didn't say that. And he's, Shawn gets a little bit lippy, knowing that everybody's going to pull him apart. And, of course, that's what happened. And everybody pulls them apart. And, so there's a lot of tension in the building that night. So we were all done. Me, Chris, Tammy, and PJ were done before the main event. So we leave and go back to the Montreal days in at the airport. And mine and PJ's room was right next to the front desk. And Chris and Tammy's room, the next room. So as we're walking into the room, the Kliq comes walking in behind us. And they tap me on the shoulder and they say, hey, we're down in room whatever. We ordered pizza and beer. We come on down. We want to talk to you. So I left them, put my bag in the room, went down to the room they were in. And they were sitting there talking pretty badly about Carl, Pierre. And they asked me what I thought of that. And it's purely from a business standpoint. You can't have a return. If I beat you clean with my finish, it's pretty hard to come back and say, well, yeah, but, you have to have some reason to have a return. And I said that. I said, well, I can see his point. It's hard to have a return off the clean finish. And Sean said, I told you guys, Shane understands, but you have to understand, Shane, this is the World Wrestling Federation. We do things differently here. And I think it's an alternate universe of physics or something. And so I remember Kevin picking me. They were talking shit on Carl. Kevin picking the phone up and saying he was going to call Vince and have him fire Carl. And either Sean, I can't remember this day. I never remember, but it was either Sean or Scott Hall who walked over and hung the phone up, pushed the button down on the phone. They said, no, let's think this through. And they started kicking it around, and the five of them started saying, we should do this, we should do that, we should do this. And finally, one of them said, I got it. Call Victor and tell him to starve Carl for 3 years. And I remember the feeling of I felt like I was watching a woman being raped. I just wanted to get out of that room and go take a shower. It was disgusting to me. And if you go back and draw, what happened to Pierre's career after that there, Kevin, I left shortly after that. I wasn't there that long. So Kevin last week had told me that they sent Carl down to the what do they call it, the farm league or whatever in Memphis, I think he said. So I'm guessing that they probably were successful in getting what they wanted with Carl. All because Carl wanted to do what Vince McMahon himself had said he wanted. That kind of stuff. They wielded great authority there. And contrary to recent statements that how could we have done anything? Well, ask Dustin Rhodes, that asked Carl, that asked me, that asked a litany of people that have been through there at that time that, and ask Vince that, if you'd be honest with you, because Vince almost lost his ass. If it hadn't been for the Attitude Era that saved him coming out of that time frame, Vince would have been belly up years before.